When my husband of 8 years threw divorce papers at me in a crowded California restaurant just to impress the woman he'd been secretly seeing, I felt my world collapse. But what he didn't know was that I had been quietly managing a luxury estate portfolio inherited from my late grandmother. And that every property was legally tied to his name through our marriage. His attempt to humiliate me triggered a chain reaction of lies, secrets, and manipulation that spiraled out of control. As their arrogance grew, so did my resolve to fight back with strategy, evidence, and devastating truth. By the time my revenge unfolded, neither of them were prepared for the fallout, or the cost of betraying me. I used to believe there were moments in life that announced themselves long before they arrived, moments wrapped in warnings, tension, strange silences. It didn't warn. It slammed into me like a car skidding through red lights. Because on a warm Friday evening in downtown Los Angeles, my husband threw divorce papers at me across a crowded restaurant. And he did it while holding hands with his new girlfriend. Let me take you there. It was supposed to be a simple dinner. A chance to clear the air. For weeks, Daniel had been distant, colder than the California fog rolling over the bay. He kept saying work was stressful, that investors were pressuring him, that he needed space. I shouldn't have. I arrived early at the restaurant. A rooftop place overlooking the city, one we used to love. The kind with warm lighting, soft music, and an outdoor terrace that smelled like citrus and rosemary. I picked a quiet table near the edge and waited. Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 30. I remember staring at the door every time it opened, building excuses in my head to protect my heart. He must be parking. He probably hit traffic. He wouldn't keep me waiting on purpose. But somewhere beneath all the excuses, something felt wrong. Very wrong. At exactly 7:43 p.m., Daniel walked in. But he wasn't alone. A woman clung to him, tall, brunette, wearing a red dress bold enough to announce something. Her heels clicked like declarations across the marble floor. Daniel didn't even look guilty. That was the worst part. He looked proud. As if he wanted people to see them together. A knot tightened in my chest. My voice felt trapped in a fog as I whispered his name. Daniel? He didn't answer. He walked toward me with a smirk resting lightly on his face, like the kind he used to give before telling me something he knew I wouldn't like. But I wasn't prepared for this. Not even close. He sat across from me without a greeting. The woman Jessica, according to the way the hostess addressed her, slid into the seat beside him, touching his arm like she owned him. And then Daniel said, loudly enough for the nearby tables to hear, "You took long enough to see the truth. I'm done with this marriage." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a brown folder, and tossed it across the table. The papers scattered like fallen leaves, drifting into my lap, onto the floor, between the plates. My breath hitched. Divorce papers. Signed. Stamped. Filed. My hands trembled as I picked them up. Every page felt heavier than the last, like each one was soaked in humiliation. The restaurant went silent around us. Conversations paused. Forks stopped. Eyes turned. Jessica leaned in close to him and whispered loud enough for me to hear. "She looks clueless. You were right." My heart fractured. Because what Daniel said next changed everything. He leaned back casually, as if this were a scripted performance, and smiled with a cruelty I didn't recognize. "I wanted to do this in public. It's cleaner this way." Cleaner? For whom? For him? Or for the woman sitting beside him like she'd won some competition? He swallowed hard. "Daniel, what is this? What's going on?" He nodded toward the papers. "It's simple, I'm moving on. He pointed at Jessica, is everything you're not. And I don't need you holding me back anymore." My pulse thudded painfully. Jessica tilted her heel. "You should feel relieved. He deserves better." I stared at her. This stranger. This woman who entered my life like a storm. Anger sparked through the heartbreak, but only faintly, like a match struggling against wind. Why now?" I whispered. Daniel's smile widened. "Because she showed me I didn't have to pretend anymore." Wasted. 8 years of marriage. 2 miscarriages. Sleepless nights. Shared dreams. All reduced to a single word. My stomach twisted. But I held back my tears. Somehow, I held them back. That restraint would matter later. Because the humiliation wasn't the twist. No. The twist was the reason he rushed the divorce. And that was about to come out next. The waiter approached nervously, unsure what to do about the growing spectacle, but Daniel waved him away. He wanted the audience. He wanted the spotlight. He wanted to break me. Daniel tapped the papers and said, "Sign them. Tonight." I already filed the request for asset separation. My heartbeat stopped. Asset separation? I repeated slowly. His grin sharpened. Everything we own is listed as mine. The car. The accounts. The investments. The house. So just sign, and we can avoid dragging this out. He lifted his arm to wrap it around Jessica's shoulders. She leaned her head against him. Like they'd practiced this. And that's when everything clicked. The delays. The distancing. The sudden change in passwords. The secret calls. The late nights at work. The push to convince me to sign a prenuptial revision 3 months ago. He wasn't falling out of love. He was planning a clean exit. He thought he could leave me with nothing. He thought he could humiliate me in public and walk away unscathed. If only he knew what I was capable of. But before I could respond, Jessica said the one sentence that flipped my world upside down. She lifted her wine glass, smirking at me as if this were some twisted victory celebration. "Once he gets access to that Malibu house you're hiding, the rest will be easy." The room spun. The Malibu house. The one property I had never, ever spoken about. The one property Daniel didn't know existed. The one property tied to a trust that his name was accidentally attached to through marriage law. My throat tightened. "Daniel, how do you know about Malibu?" Jessica laughed lightly. "Oh please. He found the papers in your office. He knows everything now. Everything." That one word laced the air with danger. Daniel smirked again. "Your little secret estate portfolio. It's impressive. I'll give you that. And now that we're divorcing, half of it is mine." My blood ran cold. He had no idea. No idea about the trust structure. No idea about the inheritance terms. No idea that the properties were technically titled under both of our names on paper but legally only accessible to me. He thought he was taking half. He was actually incriminating himself. And he didn't even know it. He thought he had power. But the real power, the kind that could destroy reputations, was sitting quietly in my handbag. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even stand up. I just looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man I had once vowed to grow old with. The man who now used someone else's lipstick on his cheek. The man who had publicly rejected me to impress a woman who didn't even understand the word trust. And suddenly, my heartbreak began to fold into something colder. A calm started spreading through me. A knowing. Because unlike him, I didn't make decisions from emotion. I made them from information. Strategic information. I leaned back and said softly, "Daniel, are you sure this is what you want?" He scoffed. "What I want is freedom. And money that's actually worth something." Jessica smirked. "Just sign. Nobody wants this to drag out." My hand steadied. And my voice turned quiet. Controlled. Almost peaceful. "Okay," I whispered. Daniel blinked. "What?" "I'll sign." He sat up straighter. Jessica smiled triumphantly. But then I added, still calm. "But I need one thing first." Because the thing I asked for left both of them speechless. I folded the papers neatly, placed them back in the folder, and looked Daniel directly in the eyes. "Before I sign anything," I said quietly, "tell me the truth." He frowned. "What truth?" I leaned forward slightly. "Were you with her before we lost the baby?" Jessica's smile vanished. Daniel's jaw tightened. The table fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. People around us froze again. Staring. Listening. Waiting. My heart pounded so loudly it felt like the room could hear it. Because I already knew the answer. I just needed to hear him say it. Jessica shifted uncomfortably. Daniel looked away. And then barely above a whisper he replied. "Yes." My world shattered. But my resolve hardened. And that's the moment. The exact moment. I decided I would destroy both of them. Not with violence. Not with rage. With truth. With strategy. With everything they underestimated in me. What would you do if your husband admitted that? They say your heart can only break once. But whoever said that has never had to keep breathing after hearing a truth that kills something inside you. Because that night, in that rooftop restaurant, after Daniel whispered yes, after admitting he'd been with her before our baby was even gone, I didn't feel one break. I felt 1,000. The air around us shifted. The lights seemed harsher. The music sharper. Even the city below felt louder, like the world was mocking the quiet collapse of my life. I stared at him. The man I had once made plans with. Plans full of children, quiet holidays, warm mornings, long futures. Now I couldn't recognize a single part of him. Not his eyes. Not his voice. Not the person he chose to become. And the worst part? He didn't even look sorry. Before, I repeated, almost unable to form the word. Before the miscarriage. Before the night I was doubled over in pain on the bathroom floor. Before he tried to tell me it was just stress. Before the hospital. Before I cried for hours wondering if it was my fault. He had been with her while I was losing our baby. Jessica's voice broke the silence first. Look, this is uncomfortable for all of us. Can we not? I lifted a hand. Just slightly. She froze. I looked only at Daniel. He couldn't meet my eyes. Why? I whispered. He swallowed. Twice. His voice stiff and thin. I wasn't happy. My chest tightened painfully. 8 years. 8 years of doing everything I could, and he wasn't happy. No explanation. No apology. Just emptiness. But the woman sitting beside him, the one he threw our marriage away for, was about to make a mistake that changed my entire strategy. Jessica leaned forward, her perfume thick in the air. Look, you two were basically over anyway. He just didn't know how to tell you. Basically over. Over? Something inside me snapped. I didn't scream. I didn't shout. Really? Because I remember him telling me he wanted us to try for another baby. Jessica blinked. Her lips parted. Daniel's eyes widened in panic. He hadn't told her everything. He hadn't told her most things. I watched the panic ripple across his face like cracks spreading through glass. Jessica snapped her attention to him. You told me you never wanted kids with her. The impact of that sentence hit me physically. He had told her that. Daniel's jaw flexed. I said we were in a bad place. Jessica scoffed. In a bad place? You were sleeping with me while she was crying in a hospital bed. Jessica, he snapped sharply. At that moment, she realized she had said too much. And I realized something important. They were not united. They were fragile. They were sloppy. And their arrogance was blinding them. Good. Arrogant people never see the storm coming. But what happened next would start the conflict that defined the rest of the story. I pushed back my chair slowly. Quietly. A few people gasped. As if I were about to flip the table or throw a drink. But I didn't do any of that. I simply stood. My movements calm. Controlled. Measured. The kind of calm that comes right before a hurricane. Daniel rose halfway, unsure. Natalie, wait. I held up the folder, the divorce papers, and tapped it gently against the table. This is what you want, I whispered. Right? He nodded once. His expression stiff, defensive, uncertain. Jessica folded her arms, irritated. It's what's best for everyone. I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, she seemed small, fragile, insecure, desperate for validation from a man who couldn't even spell loyalty. But none of that mattered. Not yet. I slid the folder into my handbag with deliberate calm. Jessica frowned. Where are you going? I met her eyes. To give you both exactly what you deserve. She blinked but didn't understand. Daniel did. His face paled. Natalie, don't do anything stupid. Oh Daniel, if only you knew what stupid really looked like. He turned and walked out. What I didn't expect was who followed me. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, the city lights glowing behind me. I stepped inside, pressing the button for the lobby. The doors began closing. Then a hand slid in between them. They reopened. and a woman stepped inside. I recognized her instantly. The hostess. She stood still for a moment, clutching a small folder. Her eyes were soft, concerned. She took a breath. "Ma'am, I don't want to overstep, but I think you should have this." She held out the folder. I frowned. "What is it?" Her voice dropped into a whisper. "Security requested it 2 weeks ago. Footage from a private lounge." My heart sped up. Private lounge. 2 weeks ago. The exact time Daniel started coming home smelling like unfamiliar perfume. He swallowed hard. "You're sure this is for me?" She nodded. "Your husband. He had the request tied to your reservation profile. But I saw what happened tonight and..." Her voice cracked. "No woman deserves that." I stared at the folder in her hands. It felt dangerous. Like opening it would change everything. She whispered. "I didn't see what was inside, I swear, but you should." The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened. She stepped back. "Take care of yourself." And then she left, leaving me alone in the quiet of the lobby, holding evidence I didn't know existed. But the moment I stepped outside, my night took a sharper turn. The cool California night air hit my face like a shock. The city buzzed beneath the rooftop glow. Cars hummed along the street. Neon signs flickered against windows. I walked toward my car, my heels echoing on the pavement. Then I heard it. "Natalie, wait." I froze. Daniel was jogging toward me, breath uneven, face strained. Jessica wasn't with him. He stopped a few feet away, hands on his hips, catching his breath. His voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "Don't you dare take those papers." My eyes narrowed. "What are you so afraid of?" He stepped closer. "Don't play games. You know exactly what I'm talking about." I shook my head slowly. "No, Daniel, for once I actually don't." He clenched his jaw. "I need this divorce clean. Simple. So hand the damn folder back." A small laugh escaped me. Not amused. Not mocking. Just empty. "You did all this in public. You humiliated me in front of strangers. You threw our marriage onto a table like trash. And now you want me to make it easier for you?" "In the end, yes," he snapped. "You know I'm entitled to half of everything." My eyes hardened. "Everything you think I have." He blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ah. He truly didn't know. Didn't understand finances. Didn't understand trust structures. Didn't understand inheritance terms. He thought I hid my estate from him. He thought I lied. But the truth was so much worse. He never listened. He never cared enough to learn anything about my family. Or my grandmother. Or the trust she left behind. I slid my keys into the car door. "Daniel, go back inside." He grabbed my arm not roughly, but firmly. "Natalie, listen to me. If you walk away with those papers..." I pulled my arm free. "Or what?" He stared at me. And for the first time, I saw fear. Real fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing something else. Something he thought he had gained. "What exactly are you afraid I'll find, Daniel?" His lips parted. He hesitated. And that hesitation, that flicker of panic in his eyes, told me everything. Everything I needed to know. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of what I now had in my hands. And suddenly, I knew I needed to open the folder the hostess gave me. Tonight. I didn't say another word. I got into my car, closed the door, and started the engine. Daniel slapped the side window once, shouting my name. But he didn't look back. Not once. I pulled out of the parking lot and merged onto the boulevard. The city lights blurred through my tears. My hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly. My breath shook every few seconds. I didn't cry for him. I cried for the version of me who loved him. The version who defended him. The version who believed him. That version of me died tonight. By the time I reached the highway, my heartbeat had steadied. I wasn't broken anymore. I was awake. Fully awake. And the folder on the passenger seat felt like a ticking bomb. I didn't open it at a red light. Not in the parking lot. Not in my driveway. I walked into my house. Our house. Lying quiet in the darkness. I set my keys down. removed my heels, took a deep breath. Then I sat on the living room couch, opened the folder, and saw something that made my blood run cold. Because the footage inside, the one Daniel requested 2 weeks ago, showed something I never expected. Not him, not Jessica, but someone else. Someone who shouldn't have been anywhere near him. The footage began with a timestamp, 10:17 p.m. 2 weeks earlier. The camera angle showed a dimly lit lounge inside the same restaurant. The private one. The one Daniel often asked to meet clients in. At first, the footage showed nothing unusual. A few servers moving around, guests chatting, dim lights flickering. Then Daniel walked in. He wasn't with Jessica. He wasn't alone either. He was with... No, it couldn't be. But it was. Plain as day. My sister. My own sister. Sitting across from him with red, swollen eyes. Holding his hands. Whispering something I couldn't hear. I pressed pause. My fingers tremble. My chest tightened. My thoughts spun like a storm. Why was she with him? Why was she crying? Why was he comforting her? Why didn't she tell me? I pressed play. And then, the moment that twisted my stomach, she leaned forward and said clearly enough to read her lips. You can't tell her. Not yet. I froze. Everything inside me froze. The camera continued recording as Daniel nodded slowly. Yvonne. I stopped the video. The room felt colder. Darker. Smaller. What? Were they hiding from me? My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. And that's where chapter 2 ends. Because the next discovery, the truth about why my sister was meeting my husband in secret, is about to cut deeper than anything I felt tonight. I used to believe the smallest choices were harmless. Teeny, forgettable. Like how a single drop of water on a still lake seems insignificant. But nobody sees the ripple until it touches the shore. That morning, the ripple reached me. My day began the same way. It always did. Coffee, emails. And that quiet moment where I pretended my life wasn't unraveling behind the scenes. But the air. God, the air felt wrong. Too sharp. Too still. Too expectant. As if something had already chosen me before I even stepped outside. I couldn't shake the feeling. I kept replaying the conversation with David. His voice trembling. His dreams resting on my shoulders. His promises cracking at the edges. I should have felt relieved after helping him. But instead, there was a weight in my chest that felt like a countdown. When I reached the office and opened the door, everyone suddenly went quiet. Not the usual kind of quiet. The targeted kind. The kind you feel before you even understand it. Their eyes lingering too long. Their whispers too soft, too synchronized. Their smiles too polite to be real. I pretended not to notice. But I felt it. Like a shiver touching the back of my neck. Something had changed. Someone had changed something. And I was at the center of it. I sat at my desk, logged in, and froze. A flashing icon. Red. Urgent. Unauthorized access detected. My stomach dropped. An alert tied directly to my system credentials. My name. My login. My digital fingerprints. It wasn't a mistake. Someone had been inside my files. My projects. My communications. Even my private notes. The ones I kept about David. The ones he begged me to hide. The ones that could ruin everything if the wrong person saw them. For a moment, my heartbeat drowned out everything else. The phone's ringing. The typing. The hum of the AC. Just the sound of fear. Pulsing. In the center of my skull. What did they take? What did they see? And who did this? I didn't know yet, but I knew one thing. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. This was the first ripple. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a name I never thought would contact me outside formal meetings. Mr. Washington, Deputy Director. He wanted to see me. Immediately. No context. No reason. Just a place and a time. I walked into the small, glass-walled conference room, and he was already seated, hands folded, jaw set, eyes unreadable. Sit, he said. One word. Like a verdict. The door closed behind me, but it didn't just close. It's sealed. Dead silence. He slid a thin folder across the table, and when I opened it, the breath left my chest. Screenshots. Activity logs. Access timestamps. All pointing back to me. You've been very busy, he said. It's not what it looks like, I whispered. He raised an eyebrow. Then tell me what it is. My throat tightened. I couldn't mention David. Not yet. Not to him. So I told the only truth I could safely give. My credentials were used. But not by me. That's a serious allegation, he replied. Do you have proof? Proof. Evidence. Anything. I had none. Only suspicion. Only intuition. Only fear. He watched me carefully, as if weighing every twitch of my face. Then he leaned back. I'm giving you 24 hours. Clear your name. Because if you don't, he closed the folder. You won't like the consequences. I left the room with my pulse racing, my palms sweating, and my fate suddenly tied to a ticking clock I never asked for. When I stepped outside the building for air, I saw him. Or thought I did. A figure leaning against a black sedan across the street. Head down. Hands in pockets. Still. Too still. When my eyes landed on him, he straightened slightly, not much, but enough for me to feel it. He was watching me. Not accidentally. Not casually. Purposefully. I didn't recognize him. But something about the way he held himself, a coldness, a certainty, made my throat go dry. I stepped back toward the building entrance. He didn't move. He didn't break eye contact. He just waited. For what, I had no idea. But instinct told me I didn't want to find out. I rushed back inside, pretending I didn't see him. But the truth? I felt his gaze long after I walked away. Like it followed me through the halls, through the elevator, through the very walls of the office. Something was coming. And whoever he was part of it. When I left work later that evening, the sun already sinking beneath the skyline, David called me. His voice came through in a frantic whisper. Did anyone ask you anything? Did anything happen? My heart skipped. He accessed my files, I blurted. Someone made it look like it was me. David, what aren't you telling me? Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then he said words I never expected. I think I made a mistake. A chill ran through my spine. What kind of mistake? The kind that doesn't go away on its own. I stepped off the sidewalk as a car sped by too close. Too fast. Too deliberately. My breath caught. David. What did you do? I can't explain now, he said. But whatever happens, please believe me, I never meant for you to get dragged into this. Too late. The ripple had already become a wave. Meet me tonight, he said. There's something you need to see. Where? He gave me a location. A place on the outskirts of town. A place I'd never been. A place people didn't go voluntarily. Then he whispered. And come alone. The call ended. As I approached my home that evening, still replaying David's words in my head, a small white envelope sat on my doorstep. No name. No stamp. No markings. Except one thing. A symbol. A circle with a diagonal slash through it. Drawn in sharp black ink. Precise. Deliberate. My chest tightened. Inside the envelope was a single note. Stop digging. You're already too deep. No signature. No explanation. Just a threat so minimal it felt surgical. My hands shook as I read it again. And again. Someone knew I was looking for answers. Someone knew I was involved. Someone wanted me silent. But I had already crossed the line. And now? There was no turning back. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. My body was too jittery, my breath too shallow, my mind too full of questions that had no answers yet. At 11:43 p.m., I got into my car and drove. Streetlights blurring past. The night pressing against the windows. My pulse thundering in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Every mile felt heavier. Every tour felt final. The location David gave me was a dead zone. No houses. No shops. No cameras. Just an abandoned industrial structure half swallowed by darkness. I parked a distance away and approached on foot, each step echoing louder than the last. When I reached the rusted door, I heard movement inside. Soft. Uneven. Familiar. Then David's voice. You came. I stepped into the darkness. What I saw made my blood freeze. Papers scattered across the floor. Blueprints. Internal documents. Financial reports. Names. Photos. Transaction logs. All linked together with red thread like some kind of conspiracy wall. In the center of the chaos, David stood trembling. I didn't tell you everything, he said. My voice came out barely above a whisper. David, what is all this? He looked at me with eyes that had seen something no one should ever see. You have no idea what we're up against. He swallowed hard. And what they're capable of. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear myself ask. Who is they? David didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to a single document pinned at the top of the board. A name. A department. A project. One I had seen only once, and hoped I'd never see again. I took a step closer to read it, but before my eyes reached the final word. Anoise otsit. Sharp. Metallic. David's face drained of color. They found us. The lights cut out. Total darkness. My breath hitched. Footsteps approached. Slow. Measured. Certain. David grabbed my wrist and whispered urgently, desperately. Run. And that's when I realized. The ripple wasn't a ripple anymore. It was a storm. And I was standing directly in its center. Fear has a sound. Not a scream. Not a gunshot. Not even footsteps. It's the silence that comes before everything falls apart. The silence I found myself drowning in as the darkness swallowed that abandoned warehouse whole. This was the moment that changed everything. And I didn't even know it yet. When the lights cut out, the world didn't just turn black. It shifted. Like the room itself inhaled. I couldn't see anything, not the walls, not the floor, not even my own hands. But I could feel the presence of something else in the room. Something deliberate. Something patient. The footsteps drew closer. Not hurried. Not reckless. Measured. Like whoever it was, had done this many times before. My pulse hammered in my ears. David, I whispered. His grip tightened on my wrist. They shouldn't have found us this quickly, he breathed, trembling. We have to move. He pulled me through the labyrinth of scattered documents, past toppled metal shelves and overturned crates, navigating the dark as if he knew every inch of it. Behind us, the footsteps paused. A voice echoed into the darkness. Nothing to worry about. They're still inside. A second voice answered, calm as ice. Good. Don't rush. They're cornered. David stiffened. I didn't recognize the voices. He did. David led me to a narrow corridor behind a rusted metal panel. A hidden escape route barely wide enough for one person. How do you know this place? I whispered. Because, he said, breathing shakily, I wasn't supposed to bring you here. I was supposed to come alone. Before I could respond, a loud crash erupted from the main hall, metal shattering, objects thrown aside. They were searching for us. And they were closing in. David pushed me into the corridor. Go. What about you? He shook his head. If we both run, they'll hear the footsteps. I'll draw them off. My chest tightened. No, we stay together. He looked at me, eyes full of guilt. I put you in danger. At least let me help get you out. His voice cracked at the end. That's when I realized something terrifying. David wasn't just scared of them. He was scared of himself. Of what he'd done. Of what he knew. Of what he couldn't take back. Before I could argue, a harsh beam of light sliced across the room behind us. A flashlight. Voices. Close. David shoved me deeper into the corridor and whispered a single word with the kind of softness that felt like a goodbye. Run. Then he turned, slammed the panel shut, and I heard him sprint in the opposite direction. The corridor plunged into complete darkness. I had no choice but to move forward. The passageway twisted left, then right, then down a sharp incline that nearly sent me tumbling. Behind me, muffled shouts. Footsteps. A struggle. David had bought me seconds, nothing more. The corridor eventually opened into a sub-level maintenance tunnel, pitch black except for the faintest sliver of moonlight trickling through a grated opening above. I could barely breathe. I could barely think. All I knew was that I had to keep moving. But as I reached the end of the tunnel, I froze. There was a figure standing in the exit doorway. Silhouetted, unmoving. Just like the one from across the street earlier. Tall. Still. Watching me. Waiting. My stomach twisted. He wasn't holding a weapon. He didn't need one. His presence was enough. For a moment, we stared at each other. Like two animals in the wild trying to decide who would make the first move. Then he stepped forward. Slow. Measured. Same rhythm as the footsteps in the warehouse. I backed up instinctively. Don't, he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. As if he already knew the outcome of this moment. You're not going anywhere. I turned. And sprinted. The tunnel amplified every sound: my breathing, my footsteps, my pounding heart. Behind me, the man's footsteps followed with chilling precision. Not frantic. Not rushed. He was matching my pace. Studying me. Tracking me. Hunting me. I reached a rusted ladder leading up to a manhole cover overhead. I climbed as fast as my shaking hands allowed. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. He wasn't even running. I pushed the cover. But it didn't budge. Rust. Age. Time. My hands scraped against the cold metal. Ishavilhara. The man's footsteps stopped directly beneath the ladder. Last chance, he said softly. I don't know where the strength came from. Fear or adrenaline or some primal instinct to survive. But I pushed with everything I had. The metal groaned. Shifted. And finally burst upward. Cold night air flooded in. I climbed out and slammed the cover back down just as the man reached the top of the ladder. His voice echoed up through the metal. This isn't over. Then silence. I stumbled out into the open and isolated stretch of road with no cars, no houses, no signs of life. Just the faint hum of the city miles away. My phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. You had one job, stay quiet. I stared at the screen. My breath coming out in jagged bursts. Another message arrived. You should have never gone with him. My heart lurched. They weren't just watching the warehouse. They were watching me. My phone buzzed again. A photo. Of me. 20 seconds ago. Climbing out of the manhole. My blood ran cold. Whoever they were close. Too close. Headlights appeared in the distance. But they weren't on. The engine was silent. The car gliding down the road like a shadow with wheels. A chill crawled down my spine. Who drives without headlights in the middle of the night? The car slowed. Then stopped. Right in front of me. The passenger side window rolled down halfway. A voice whispered from inside. Get in. I stepped back. No. You don't understand. It's not safe out here. I swallowed hard. Who are you? The voice paused. Then. The only one trying to keep you alive. I didn't believe him. I didn't dare trust him. Not after tonight. I turned and ran. The car didn't chase me. It just sat there. Watching. Waiting. As if the driver knew something I didn't. Something about what was coming next. I reached a busier street. Streetlights. People. A sense of normalcy that felt painfully out of place after what I'd just survived. My phone rang. David. I answered immediately. Where are you? I demanded. What happened? His breathing was ragged. I'm okay, he whispered. For now. Who were those men? Why were they there? What are you hiding from me? He exhaled shakily. I didn't want you to be part of this. But after tonight, there's no escaping it. My chest tightened. Escaping what, David? There was a long pause. Then he said something that made my knees weak. They're not after me anymore. My voice cracked. What do you mean? They're after you. The world stopped. Time stopped. Everything inside me went silent. Why would they be after me? David swallowed. Because you have something they want. I don't. Yes, he whispered. You do. And you don't even know you have it. My throat went dry. David. What did you give me? Before he could answer, I heard it. Shouting in the background. Heavy footsteps. A struggle. No. Please wait. David? David. A crash. A muffled scream. Static. Then, "We warned you." The call disconnected. I stood there in the middle of the street, the world spinning around me, realizing the frightening truth. Whatever this was, whatever David had uncovered, whatever they thought I had, I was now in the center of it. And the people coming for me, they were done giving warnings. People think fear hits all at once. It doesn't. Fear comes in layers. First confusion, then realization, and then something deeper, something colder. The moment David's call cut off, something inside me broke and froze at the same time. I wasn't just in danger. I was in danger because of something I didn't even know I had. And that was a different kind of terror. I stood on the sidewalk, my phone still pressed to my ear, though the call was long gone, disconnected by someone who enjoyed hearing fear crumble in real time. Cars kept passing by, horns blaring, city lights flickering across my face, but it all felt disconnected. Like I was behind a soundproof glass wall, watching the world exist while my own life unraveled in slow motion. David's last words wouldn't leave my mind. "Because you have something they want. You don't even know you have it." I looked down at myself, jacket, pockets, shoes, the phone in my hand, anything that could have been slipped onto me without my knowledge. Nothing made sense. That made it worse. Much worse. My throat tightened as my mind spiraled. What did he mean? What could I possibly have? Why did they take him? Why me? A cold realization clawed its way up my spine. If they had David, they'd expect him to tell them where I was. And if he didn't, they'd make him. I shuddered. He wouldn't talk. Not willingly. But pain breaks people. And these men didn't sound like they needed much time to make someone beg. I knew I had minutes. Maybe less. A shadow crossed my periphery. I spun. A man stood across the street. Half in shadow. Half under a broken street lamp flickering with sickly yellow light. Not the same man from the tunnel. But someone who wanted me to see him. His posture was unnervingly still. Arms loose at his sides. Shoulders relaxed. Head slightly tilted like he was studying a specimen. And he didn't blink. Not once. My stomach dropped. Because while everything about him said predator, his expression said something worse. Amusement. Like watching me panic was entertainment. A bus roared between us, and when it passed, he was gone. Vanished. But not gone. Men like that don't disappear. They reposition. They wait. They hunt. I forced myself to move, walking hard and fast toward the first crowded place I could see, a small 24-hour diner still buzzing with late-night chatter. Neon signs, warm lights, people laughing. Forks clinking, normalcy at a time when I didn't even remember what normal felt like. I slid into a booth at the back, hands shaking, heart pounding. The waitress approached with a tired smile. "You okay, sweetheart? You look like you've seen a ghost." I swallowed hard. Something like that. She left a glass of water on the table and stepped away, glancing back twice like she didn't trust leaving me alone. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew I shouldn't. But my thumb moved before my brain did. One new message. "We know where you are." My breath hitched. Then another. "Check your left pocket." My pulse roared in my ears. Left pocket. Left pocket. My hands shook violently as I reached in and felt something small. Metallic, cold. I pulled it out. A tiny silver USB drive. I stared at it. I didn't remember putting it there. David. He must have slipped it into my pocket at some point. The restaurant, the parking lot, the warehouse. When? How? And why didn't he tell me? My screen lit up again. "Don't plug it in." Another message instantly followed. "We'll take it from you soon enough." I felt the diner's warm air shift. Like someone had opened a door behind me. I turned. And froze. Because standing near the entrance, pretending to browse the pastry display, was the same man from across the street. Not watching me directly, but angled perfectly to see my reflection in the diner's window. They were closer than I thought. And they weren't hiding anymore. Panic surged through me. I slipped out of the booth, crouched low, and hurried toward the back hallway where the employees-only sign hung crookedly beside a soda machine. I didn't care anymore. I needed distance. Anywhere but here. The hallway stretched into a small service exit leading to an alley. I pushed the door open. Cold air rushed in. But something felt wrong. My instinct screamed. I stepped one foot into the alley. And that's when I heard it. Don't move. Not a demand. A warning. A woman's voice. I spun. A woman I'd never seen before leaned against the brick wall beside the dumpster, hands in the pockets of a leather jacket. Hair pulled back, expression sharp but strangely calm. She stared at me like she'd been waiting all night. When she spoke again, her tone cut through me. If you walk into that alley, she said softly, you won't be walking back. My voice cracked. Who are you? She looked at me for a long moment, then stepped closer, stopping just outside my reach. I'm the one person they haven't found yet, she whispered. And the only one who knows what that drive in your pocket actually contains. My heart stopped. She knew. She actually knew. Please, I whispered. Tell me what they want. She shook her head slowly. Not here. Behind us, the diner door creaked open. The man from earlier stepped into the hallway. Eyes locked on me. The woman swore under her breath. No time. Come with me. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me deeper into the alley. Not toward danger, but toward a narrow side passage I hadn't even noticed. We slipped through just as the man reached the exit door. His voice echoed behind us. You're only delaying the inevitable. But for the first time that night, I wasn't running alone. The passageway spilled out onto a quieter street behind a row of closed storefronts. The woman kept pulling me forward until we reached a spot out of sight from the diner. Only then did she let go. Listen to me, she said, turning to face me fully. I don't have long, and you have even less. That drive you're carrying? It's not just valuable, it's catastrophic. E swallowed hard. What's on it? Her jaw tightened. Proof. Proof of what? She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned in quietly. They'll kill for it, they already have. My stomach twisted. Then, David? She looked away, eyes heavy with something that made my throat tighten. He didn't disappear tonight, she said softly. I shook my head violently. No, I saw him tonight, he was with me. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a photo, recent. Time-stamped 48 hours earlier. David. Bruised. Tied to a chair. Unconscious. My breath collapsed. That's impossible, I whispered, my voice breaking. He was with me, he helped me escape. The woman exhaled deeply. That wasn't David. I froze. Every muscle in my body went cold. What are you saying? She stepped back, eyes somber. I'm saying whoever you were with tonight wasn't him. My knees buckled. My chest caved in. Everything I thought I knew about the last 6 hours shattered in an instant. And before I could even speak, before I could process, she took another step back and whispered. They're using his face, his voice, his patterns. Because they knew you'd trust him. Mu voice barely escaped my lips. Then, what do they want from me? She hesitated. You have something that could bring down every one of them. And they're going to tear this city apart until they rip it from your hands. My heartbeat stalled. What's on the drive? I begged. She met my eyes, steady and unflinching, and said, a list. I swallowed. A list of what? She took a breath. A list of every politician, businessman, and law enforcement official tied to the largest underground finance syndicate in California. My chest tightened. And David. He was the whistleblower, she whispered. The only one who knew it existed. I felt faint. So they killed him? Her voice softened. No. They need him alive. Because he's the only one who can decrypt it. I shook my head, tears burning down my face. Then why come after me? She reached out and gently closed my fingers around the USB drive. Because, she said. Her tone steady as ice. You have the only copy. The street behind her suddenly flooded with headlights, a black SUV turning the corner slowly. Too slowly, scanning the area. Her eyes widened. They found us. Wait, I whispered. What do I do? She grabbed my shoulders. You run. And you don't stop. But what about you? She gave me the faintest, saddest smile I've ever seen. I was done running a long time ago. Before I could argue, she shoved me toward the far end of the alley. The SUV doors opened. Men stepped out. She stood between me and them, not scared. Not shaking. Resolve it. I sprinted. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. But her voice carried across the alley, echoing behind me like a final command. Don't let them win. Don't let them find the truth before you do. And then, gunshots. Not one. 3. Sharp. Final. Echoing off brick and metal. I kept running. Tears blurred the world. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But I didn't stop. Because now I knew the truth. And the truth was terrifying. They didn't want me. They wanted what I was carrying. And the only person who could decrypt it was already in their hands. David wasn't missing. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't safe. He was a prisoner. And I had just become the only leverage he had left. Nothing felt right after that night. Not the way my phone kept buzzing at odd hours. Not the way Caleb would glance at the screen, frown, and flip it over like the message wasn't meant for daylight. Not the sudden tension behind his smile. Not the way his voice got softer, guarded, careful. Something had shifted. And at first, I tried to convince myself it was just stress. Or exhaustion. Or his creative mood, the one he used to fall into when he was supposed to be building his so-called dream. But deep down? I felt it. The tremor behind the quiet. The weight behind the air. A truth moving like a shadow behind a locked door. And every day that passed, that door seemed to shake harder. It happened on a Thursday. He came home later than usual, the kind of late that smells like excuses. His clothes were rumpled. His eyes wide. His energy buzzing with a strange mix of adrenaline and panic. What happened? I asked. He hesitated. Too long. Then he smiled, that weak, watery smile people use when they're lying to themselves as much as to you. Oh, car trouble. Got stuck on 3rd Avenue. He said it casually. Too casually. Except, earlier that day, I had walked past 3rd Avenue on my way home. And a massive construction crew had the entire street closed off. Not even a bicycle could get through. But I said nothing. Because sometimes silence tells you more than confrontation. 2 days later, I borrowed Caleb's jacket. He didn't even notice. But inside one of the pockets, folded tight like something meant to be forgotten, was a receipt. A receipt from a restaurant we'd never been to. Not together. A place across town, trendy, loud, and expensive. 2 nights ago. 2 hours after he said he was already asleep. My heart didn't break. It paused. Like it was listening now. Really listening. It rained that Sunday. Heavy, cold, drumming like a warning on the roof. Caleb was in the shower, humming softly, unaware of the small storm gathering in the living room. His phone lit up on the table. Once. Twice. Then again. I didn't touch it. I didn't move. I just watched the name flash. AS. No last name. Just initials. Clean. Deliberate. Protected. After a moment, the messages stopped. But I just sat there. Staring. Feeling that creeping, icy sense that something was cracking under the surface. Something I hadn't asked for. Something I wasn't ready for. We were supposed to have dinner together. Key word. Supposed. He texted me 1 hour before. Emergency at the studio. Might be late. Except, he didn't have a studio session booked. I had the schedule, I'd helped him organize it. So I waited. And waited. Until it was almost midnight. When the door finally opened, he looked startled, like he expected me to be asleep, or gone, or indifferent. Instead, I was sitting there, lights low, dinner untouched. Long night? I asked. He froze. Just for a second. But that 1 second told me everything that came next. I told you, things ran late, he said, tossing his keys on the counter. No work tonight, I replied. I checked. His jaw tightened. Hands in pockets. Shoulders stiff. So you're... what? Keeping tabs on me now. It wasn't anger in his voice, not real anger. It was fear. A flicker of exposed nerves. Like he was terrified I had finally caught up to something he'd been outrunning. He exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. Look, I just needed some space tonight, okay? That word space. It sliced something clean in me. Because people don't ask for space out of the blue. They ask when they've already given it to someone else. But I didn't say that. I just nodded. Calm. Too calm. Because when your world starts shaking, you hold on to whatever furniture is closest. Even if it's already broken. The next day, everything snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a thin wire that finally gave way after too much tension. It was evening. I stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, and heard his voice. Low. Urgent. Whispering. He was in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. No, not now, he hissed. I told you, she's here, just wait, I'll figure it out. The moment he saw me, he froze. Then he hung up. Fast. I stared. He stared back. No lies left. No excuses ready. Just a silence so sharp it could cut. He sat down on the edge of the bed. Face in his hands. Shoulders shaking. I'm trying, he whispered. I swear I'm trying. To do what? I asked. He looked up, eyes red, guilt woven through every line of his expression. I messed up, he said. I messed up bad. My pulse hammered. A foul moved across my vision. But he stayed still. Say it. I whispered. He swallowed hard. Then he said something I didn't expect. Not yet. Not like this. It's not what you think. It's not an affair. A breath I didn't realize I was holding escaped my chest. But before relief could settle, he added. It's worse. He stood, walked to the closet, reached behind the top shelf, and pulled out a small, battered metal lockbox. I had never seen it before. My stomach tightened. He placed it on the bed, hands trembling, eyes unfocused. I should have told you months ago, he said quietly. But I thought I could fix it before you found out. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Fix what? I whispered. He opened the box. Inside was a stack of envelopes. Crisp, plain, identical. Each one marked A, S. He handed me one. My fingers shook as I pulled out the paper. The first line made my blood go cold. Caleb, your next deadline is 3 days overdue. This is your final warning. My breath hitched. Another line beneath it. If you fail again, the consequences will not be financial. I stared at him. What is this? I asked. His voice cracked. It's debt. The kind you don't get from a bank. My chest tightened. No. No, no, no. You owe money too. He shook his head. It's not just money, it's contracts. Agreements. Stupid risks I thought I could manage. He sank onto the bed. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you pulled into this. But by now, I was already in it. Neck deep. How much? I whispered. He didn't answer. How much, Caleb? He looked away. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Everything. The word hit like a punch. What do you mean, everything? He exhaled a shuddering, broken breath. I mean, I owe them more than I can pay. More than I can run from. And they're out of patience. The room spun. My throat burned. I felt like the floor was dissolving beneath my feet. How long? I asked softly. A year, he said. Before we moved in here. Before. Us. He blinked. He had carried this secret. Through our first date. Through our first argument. Through every moment we had built together. And now it was a ticking bomb living under our bed. And A.S. I asked. He hesitated. Then he whispered. She's the one collecting. My breath caught. She, I repeated slowly. He nodded. She's not. Someone you want to owe. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could outpace it. He gestured at the envelopes. But she doesn't let go. His hands shook so badly he had to clench them into fists. She wants the money. And if I can't give her that, she wants something else. My stomach dropped. What does she want, Caleb? He swallowed. His eyes filled with dread. Then he said it. She wants you to pay the next installment. And that was the moment everything stopped breathing. She wants you to pay the next installment. Those words didn't echo, they detonated. Every sound in the room died. Every breath froze. Every distant street noise, every hum from the refrigerator, every soft vibration from the phone. All of it collapsed into silence. I stared at him. He stared at the floor. The clock ticked once. Twice. It felt like the world had shifted in a direction it didn't have permission to go. Finally, my voice found its way out barely. Caleb. What does that mean? He swallowed hard, jaw trembling, eyes glossy with shame. It means she thinks you're the leverage I care about most. My skin prickled. Something ancient and instinctive surged up my spine, not anger, not fear. Recognition. A predator had taken an interest. And I wasn't sure if I was the prey, or the bait. He stood and paced, fingers threading through his hair, breathing like he couldn't get enough air into his lungs. I was trying to protect you, he said. Too late, I whispered. He flinched. Why didn't you tell me sooner? The question burst out before I could stop it. He froze. Shoulders slumped. Voice small. Because I didn't want you to see me like this. That answer hurt more than anything else so far. I wasn't afraid of his flaws. I wasn't afraid of his mistakes. I was afraid of the distance he built to hide them. I picked up one of the envelopes. Clean. White. Unremarkable. The kind of thing you'd mistake for a utility bill. The kind of thing that, if you didn't know better, you'd leave unopened for days. But inside this one, someone had written a threat with the calmness of a person who didn't need to raise their voice to destroy a life. What exactly do you owe her? I asked. His eyes flicked to mine, then away. Money, for starters. For starters? I repeated. He sat down, elbows on knees, palms pressed to his face. It didn't begin as a debt, he murmured. It began as an opportunity. That word tasted poisonous. I stayed silent. He continued. She financed my early work. Some projects. Equipment. Connections. Studio time. I thought I was getting a head start. And instead, I asked. And instead, she claimed ownership of everything. My stomach nodded. Ownership of what? I asked slowly. He hesitated. Then he whispered. Me. I didn't sign anything, he said. Not legally. But in that world, you don't need a signature. You just need to accept the money. He exhaled. And I accepted too much. Bits and pieces of the last year rearranged themselves in my mind, the nights he couldn't sleep, the sudden mood swings, the calls he never explained, the pressure he wore like a second skin. He had been unraveling long before I noticed the thread. And she wants me, I said. He nodded. She thinks you're the reason I'm resisting. The reason I stopped obeying. The reason I'm falling behind. My blood chilled. And she wants to use me how? He answered so quietly I almost missed it. As collateral. Collateral for what? I pressed. He buried his face in his hands. For my failure. My pulse pounded in my ears. But what does that look like, Caleb? He clenched his jaw. She wants access, influence, control. She wants to know that if I don't deliver, she can reach you. My hands went cold. Does she know where we live? He paused. Long enough for me to feel the answer before he said it. Yes. Ice crawled through me. How long has she known? A while. Define a while, Caleb. He swallowed. Since the move. Since we moved in together. Since we made a home. Since we built something real. Since I thought I was safe. We didn't sleep that night. Or pretend to. We stayed awake with the lights off. Backs pressed to opposite sides of the bed, breathing slow, heavy, uneven. I wasn't angry yet. Not truly. I was adjusting. To the new shape of danger. To the new shape of truth. To the new shape of him. Sun bled into the room through the blinds. We sat in silence. Then, at exactly 7:42 a.m., his phone vibrated on the table. Just once. A long, deliberate buzz. We both stared. Then it buzzed again. Same vibration pattern. Same timing. He reached for it slowly, as though touching it might detonate something. He turned the screen toward me, the name glowing across it. A.S. My heart crashed against my ribs. Don't answer it, I whispered. He didn't. It stopped ringing. Then a message appeared. 2 words. Herturn. Caleb's breathing ruptured. He stood so suddenly the chair scraped the floor. She's escalating, he said, voice cracking. She never moves this fast. Never reaches out directly. His hands shook so violently he had to grip the counter to steady them. I'll fix this, he said. I swear I'll fix this. How? I asked. He didn't have an answer. His silence was a wound that spread across the room. He turned to me with a look I had never seen on him before. Not fear. Not guilt. Not desperation. Resolve. I need you to leave town. The word leave hit me like a slap. I'm not running, I said. You're not running. He replied softly. You're surviving. No. Yes. He stepped toward me, eyes burning with a mix of terror and love. I can't lose you, he whispered. You don't understand what she's capable of. Then make me understand. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then whispered. She ruins people. Not with guns. Not with threats. With certainty. My skin tightened. Certainty of what? That she will get what she wants. I leaned forward. Tell me who she is, I said. Tell me what she wants. Tell me why you let this happen. He flinched. Then whispered. She's not just a lender. Not just a collector. He stopped. Swallowed hard. Say it, I whispered. He stared into nothing, voice trembling. She's the one who made me. She thinks she owns my future. And now? She thinks she owns you. My throat tightened. What's her real name? I asked. He hesitated. Looked at the floor. Then at me. Then finally said. Aurelia Silva. The initials. A.S. Aurelia. A name that sounded like gold wrapped around razor blades. How long have you known she was a threat to me? I asked. His voice cracked. Since the night she first saw your picture. A shiver tore through me. What picture? He didn't answer in words. He walked to his drawer, pulled something out, and placed it in front of me. My photo. Printed. Folded. Handled. Too many times. My face. In her possession. Before I ever knew she existed. My blood ran cold. My chest tightened, breath catching. You should have told me, I said. I know. You should have warned me. I know. You should have trusted me. He exhaled shakily. I was trying to save you. You were trying to control the damage, I corrected. And now the damage is controlling us. He closed his eyes. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw him cry. Not softly. Not quietly. But like a man drowning under a weight he put on his own shoulders. A weight he couldn't carry anymore. I sat beside him. His breathing was ragged. His hands covered his face. His tears hit the floor. And I whispered something I never thought I'd have to say. Caleb. If she wants me involved, then we face her together. He froze. Looked up at me with disbelief and devastation knotted together. No, he whispered. You don't know what that means. I'm not abandoning you. You're not helping me by staying. Then tell me what she wants, I said firmly. Tell me what she keeps asking for. Tell me what you've been refusing. He stared at the wall, motionless, silent. Then, finally, with a voice so thin it could break, he whispered. She doesn't want money anymore. My stomach twisted. What does she want? He lifted his eyes to mine, haunted, hollow, terrified, and said, she wants you to replace me. Everything inside me went still. I sat there, staring at him. Caleb, the man I had loved, trusted, shared my entire life with, now reduced to trembling shadows in front of a single truth. Aurelia Silva wanted me. Not in a romantic sense. Not as a friend. Not as an ally. She wanted me as leverage. A weapon. Collateral. I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I just sat, frozen. His hands trembled in his lap. She's giving you a choice, he whispered. Or, She thinks she is. What choice? I asked. You comply, he said. Or she comes for you anyway. The silence in the room stretched, as if it, too, understood the gravity. I could almost feel her there. Her presence, cold, calculating, suffocating. And for a moment, I hated her. I hated her for seeing me this way, exposed, afraid, helpless. I hated her for making me part of a game I didn't even know existed. He leaned forward, voice low, trembling. I tried to pay her off. Every time she demanded more, I thought I could handle it. I thought I could shield you. But she doesn't deal in ordinary currency. She deals in fear. And I've already lost. He swallowed hard. You mean, she's done with you? His jaw clenched. Not done. She's bored. She's impatient. She wants something new. Something valuable. And she thinks you are it. The room went cold. I knew, in that moment, that nothing would be the same. Not our life. Not our home. Not even our breath in the same space. He didn't speak. He didn't cry. I didn't panic. Instead, I did what I do best. I needed information. I needed leverage. I needed control, or at least a way to survive what was coming. I reached for the USB drive in my pocket. Cold metal against my skin. The tiny device that could destroy everything Aurelia Silva had spent years building. If she wanted me, I could become the bargaining chip she didn't expect. But first, I needed to know what she truly had in mind. Caleb's phone buzzed. He froze mid-breath. I knew the number before he even looked. "AS. You need to answer it," I whispered. "No, not yet." "Then put it on speaker," I demanded. He hesitated. Then, finally, press the button. A voice cut through the room. Soft. Controlled. Cold as ice. "Caleb," she said. "Thank you for finally bringing her." I stiffened. My heart hammered. She continued, slower, deliberate. "She's intriguing. Smarter than I expected. Stronger than I assumed. But strength doesn't mean compliance." The words dripped like venom. I felt it sink into my bones. "And you," she said, turning her attention to me without moving from the phone. "You have a choice. Step into my world. Or be destroyed outside of it." Caleb's hand shook as he handed me the phone. I picked it up. My thumb hovered over the speaker button. Her voice, velvet and steel, filled my ears. "I'm willing to make a deal. You can work with me, or against me. But know this. Refusal is not a valid option. Refusal is death." He swallowed hard. I could feel her watching me, waiting for a reaction. "And Caleb?" she continued. "You may stay. For now. But you are of little interest unless you prove useful." My blood ran cold. She hung up. Silence filled the room. Then Caleb whispered. "Her reach, it's worldwide." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I already knew. That night, I didn't sleep. I spread the lockbox out on the bed. Every envelope, every document, every note carefully catalogued. I didn't have answers. I had clues. I had patterns. And one thing I did have, a plan forming in the shadows of fear. She underestimated me. She thought she could intimidate me. She thought I would panic. She thought I would comply. But she didn't know the secrets I held. And she didn't know I had nothing left to lose. Days later, I went out alone. No Caleb. No friends. No witnesses. I followed the trail of her associates. Every sighting, every movement, every meeting was logged. I didn't confront. I didn't talk. I watched. And then I struck. Not with violence. Not yet. With information. A small leak. A trail of breadcrumbs. A phone call to one of her junior operatives. The results were immediate. Chaos. Confusion. Internal suspicion. She had built an empire of fear, and I had just shown her a crack. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt olive. And that, I realized, was dangerous for both of us. Caleb returned home that night. He froze when he saw me. "You went out?" he whispered. "Alone?" "Yes," I said. "Alone. But not unarmed." Not unprepared. I know her. I know what she wants. And I know how to make her hesitate. He looked at me like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. Then, slowly, he nodded. Be careful, he said. Don't make her notice you. I smiled faintly, grimly. Too late, I said. She already has. 2 nights later, I received a note. No text. No phone call. No email. Just a card slipped under my door. On it, written in elegant, almost beautiful handwriting. Meet me. Midnight. Abandoned pier. It was unsigned. I knew immediately who it was. Aurelia Silva. I didn't call Caleb. I didn't call anyone. I went alone. Because if she wanted to see me, I needed to see her first. The pier was deserted. Fog curling around the posts like smoke from a dying fire. Water lapping quietly against the pilings. Every step I took echoed in the emptiness. I wasn't afraid. Not yet. I was calculating. Then I saw her. Tall. Elegant. Controlled. Her hair loose in the wind, her coat dark against the pale fog. And those eyes sharp, measuring, piercing. She didn't speak. She just waited. And I realized in that moment. This wasn't about me. This wasn't about Caleb. This was about power. She stepped forward, voice calm, low, and cutting like glass. You came alone. I did, I said. No fear. No hesitation. You have something I want. I nodded. Slowly. Yes. And I want something too. Her eyes narrowed. Do you? She asked. Or are you pretending? I stepped closer, tone measured. I'm not pretending. But I decide the terms now. For the first time, she blinked. She smiled, not a friendly smile. Not an amused smile. But a smile that promised the war had begun. I like that, she said softly. Let's see how long you can survive it. And just like that, the night swallowed us both. After the pier, everything changed. Not outwardly. Not in a way that people would notice. But inside, everything had shifted. The air felt heavier. The nights longer. The shadows in my home longer, darker, watching. I didn't speak to Caleb about the meeting. I didn't tell him what Aurelia had said. Some things, I realized, had to be faced alone. And in that silence, I began to prepare. Every document, every contact, every small piece of intel I had gathered became a weapon. Every secret Caleb had kept became fuel. Every threat Aurelia had whispered became a strategy. I was no longer just surviving. I was building. And that was dangerous. It was Thursday night. Rain fell in steady, violent sheets, thrumming against the roof. The kind of night where even your thoughts feel heavy. The doorbell rang. Caleb was at work. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hesitated. The second bell rang. Then a third. I approached the door cautiously. Through the peephole, I saw a figure I didn't recognize. Tall. Slim. Wearing a dark coat and hat pulled low. I opened the door. And instantly, I knew. I shouldn't have. The figure held out an envelope. No words. No introduction. Just the envelope. I took it. Opened it. Inside, photographs. Me. In my own home. Every room documented. Every move captured. And in the handwriting I'd learned to fear. We know your every step. Stop pretending. I froze. The air left my lungs. My hands shook. This was her first move after the pier. She had watched me. She had waited. And now, she had struck. Before I could even process, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Enjoying the game? Her voice was smooth. Cold. Velvet with steel underneath. I warned you, she said. But you didn't listen. You thought you could negotiate. You thought you could survive. Now you'll see what happens when someone doesn't play by my rules. I gripped the phone tightly. I'm not afraid of you, I whispered. She laughed. A sound that made blood curdle. Brave. Foolish. Deliciously naive. Then she hung up. And that was the moment I realized. She had already infiltrated everything. Our home. Our schedules. Our life. Caleb walked in moments later, the envelope in my hands. The photos spread across the table. His face went pale. "What happened?" he asked. I didn't answer immediately. I just handed him the envelope. He examined it, then looked up at me with a mixture of fear and guilt. "She's escalating," I said quietly. "Do you understand? She's already inside our lives." Caleb's hands shook. I thought I had contained it. I thought I could handle it before it reached you." I shook my head. "No. She's here. And now, we have a choice." That night, I made a call. Not to Caleb. Not to anyone he knew. I called someone who owed me nothing. Someone I trusted to give me the truth. The response was immediate. "She's not working alone," the voice said. "She has an accomplice. Someone inside Caleb's circle. Someone close." I felt my stomach twist. "What? Who?" I asked. The voice paused, then said words that cut deeper than any threat Aurelia had ever delivered. "Your husband." I froze. Everything snapped into focus. Every late night. Every secret phone call. Every slip he had made. Caleb. He had been hiding more than debt. More than fear. He had been keeping her close. I didn't wait. I didn't plan. I just acted. I drove through the storm, headlights cutting through the sheets of rain. I arrived at the small studio Caleb had claimed was for work. The door was unlocked. Inside, I found him. Caleb. Him and her. Not together in intimacy, but together in strategy. She was dictating, he was taking notes, nodding, following her every instruction. I felt my chest constrict. My hands tightened into fists. I stepped forward. Rainwater dripping from my coat. "Why?" I demanded. He looked at me. Fear. Guilt. Shame. I didn't want you involved," he said. "I was trying to protect you." I laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. "Protect me? You were colluding with her. You were handing me over like a prize." His lips trembled. I didn't know what else to do. She threatened everything. Me. Us. Our future. I thought I could negotiate. I thought I could. I cut him off. "You lied. You betrayed me. You chose her over me. Over us." And I realized, in that moment, that everything had changed. I didn't just need revenge. I needed truth. And I needed control. She stepped forward, emerging from the shadows of the studio. Tall, elegant. Controlled. Her presence filled the room. "Ah," she said, voice dripping silk and steel. "So, the little pawn finally confronts the player." I stared her down. "Your game is over," I said. She smiled. "On the contrary," she replied. "It's just begun." Caleb flinched. I flinched. The room seemed to shrink. She gestured to Caleb. "Your husband here thinks he can bargain. He thinks he can protect. He underestimates me. And now," she leaned closer, eyes locked on mine. "He's nothing but an obstacle." The words hit me like a punch. And then she whispered, "Do you see now why I want you?" Caleb stepped forward, trying to intervene. "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking. I silenced him with a look. "No more excuses. No more lies. I'm not yours to offer," I said to Aurelia. "Not his. Not anyone's." She laughed softly. "Bold, brash, foolish. You could be useful if you only knew how to play." I realized then, she wasn't bluffing. And this was no longer just about money, or leverage, or fear. It was about domination. And if I wanted to survive, I would have to play her game. Her way. She extended a hand. Not threatening, not gentle. Just an invitation. "Join me," she said. "Or be destroyed." I looked at Caleb. Then at her. And I understood something vital, terrifying. This wasn't about him anymore. This wasn't about us. This was about me. And the choice I made next would change everything. I stepped back from the pier from the studio that had become a cage. Aurelia's eyes narrowed. Caleb's jaw dropped. They expected me to comply, to tremble, to bend. I didn't. I'm done being anyone's pawn, I said. My voice was quiet, but every word cut like steel. Neither of you controls me. Aurelia's smile faltered just slightly. She had never encountered defiance like mine. Not from someone she intended to dominate. You don't understand what's at stake, she hissed. Your life, everything. I held up my hand. Try me. Her eyes flashed. But I walked past her, out of the studio, into the night. The rain had stopped. Fog drifted low, curling like smoke over the asphalt. Every step I took felt calculated. Every shadow became my companion. I called no one. I texted no one. I needed silence. I needed distance. I needed the freedom to think, plan, and strike without anyone watching. I knew Aurelia's reach was long. But every empire has its cracks. Every predator has a weakness. And I would find hers. Pause. Back at my luxury estate, I laid out every piece of information I had. Caleb's secrets. Aurelia's patterns. The envelopes. The threats. I traced connections. Contacts. Payments. Movements. Every piece of her empire I could expose. Every point where she had overreached. Every place she had underestimated someone smart, resourceful, and angry. And then I struck. A small but precise leak. One carefully placed message. One email routed through an untraceable account. By morning, chows had begun. I didn't see the effect immediately. I didn't need to. News started circulating quietly among Aurelia's network. Whispers. Misplaced trust. Confused operatives questioning orders. Aurelia's carefully controlled system began to wobble. And the best part? They had no idea it was me. I watched the empire of fear tremble, knowing that the first real disruption had begun. Caleb returned home late that night. He looked at me, eyes wide, face pale. You did what? He whispered. I didn't answer immediately. I let the tension linger. I didn't negotiate, I said finally. I didn't compromise. I acted. And now she's vulnerable. He shook his head. She'll find out. She'll retaliate. I smiled faintly. Then she'll learn not to underestimate me. I hadn't seen Aurelia's response yet. But I didn't need to. A subtle message arrived by courier at my estate. No note. No warning. Just the envelope. Inside only 3 words. You're next, darling. He didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. I placed the envelope beside the others. And I began planning the next move. Everything had changed. No longer a pawn. No longer collateral. No longer confined by anyone's rules. The game had shifted. From now on, I made the rules. And the first rule of the new game, never trust him again. Caleb had been compromised, manipulated, and weak. I would keep him alive but at a distance. The second rule, never show fear. Aurelia relied on fear to control. Without it, her power was temporary. The third rule, act first. Because in this game, hesitation was death. He didn't sleep. He didn't rest. I worked through the night. Mapping, tracing, plotting, and predicting. Every move she had made. Every contact she had leveraged. Every weakness she had exposed. And then, carefully, he began to dismantle it. Small strikes. Silent attacks. Calculated disruptions. She didn't see me coming. She didn't even know the storm had started. But by sunrise, she would. And that was when the real game began. I stood by the window, watching the city wake beneath me. The sun barely touched the horizon. Fog still lingered over the streets like a warning. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single message. Impressive. But you'll regret this. I smiled. Leaned back against the wall. And whispered. Not if I get there first. The morning after my first strike, the air in the estate felt electric. Not loud. Not obvious, subtle. A tension that threaded itself through the walls, through the floorboards, into my chest. Caleb arrived, late, as usual. He found me standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee in hand, rain-soaked fog still lingering over the city. You did it. He said quietly. No accusation. No relief. Just acknowledgement. I turned slowly, eyes sharp. Yes, I said. And she noticed. Caleb flinched. I didn't say more. I didn't need to. The room was heavy with unsaid words, old betrayals, and the knowledge that nothing would ever be simple again. He stepped closer, voice low, hesitant. I never wanted this for you. For us. I raised an eyebrow. You lied. You hid her influence. You handed me over like I was an object. His lips trembled. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I could control her. I thought if I made the right sacrifices. I cut him off. Sacrifices? That's what you call betrayal? I didn't know what else to do, he admitted. I thought I could fix it. Fix it? I echoed, my voice rising with anger. You left me alone to face her. You chose her over me. He looked at the floor. Silent. Broken. Before he could say more, my phone vibrated. A single text. I see what you've done. Clever. But dangerous. Midnight. Doc 9. I didn't hesitate. Not this time. Not when she was finally calling my bluff. Caleb tried to intervene. Don't go, he said, fear lacing his tone. She'll destroy you. I shook my head. You think I haven't already started dismantling her world? I'm not afraid of her. I'm not afraid of anyone. And with that, I left, leaving Caleb behind. Conflicted. Vulnerable, helpless. The dock was deserted. Water lapping softly, fog thick as velvet, wind biting through my coat. She was waiting. Of course she was. Tall, elegant, poised, every movement calculated. Her eyes glimmered with the confidence of someone who believed the world bent to her will. You came, she said, voice silk and steel. Alone. Bold. Foolish. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I walked toward her. I know everything, I said. Your threats, your empire. Your reach. And I know your weaknesses. She tilted her head. Intrigued. Do you now? I don't play games you control, I said firmly. Not anymore. And not with my life as the prize. She laughed softly, a sound like glass breaking. You've stirred the hornet's nest, little pawn. Do you understand that? Yes, I replied. But I've already started dismantling it. And by sunrise, you'll feel the first real impact. Expression flicker. Not fear but surprise. Not respect but curiosity. You've got fire. She admitted. Maybe too much for someone so small. But fire alone won't save you. I realized then. She respected me. She feared the potential of my mind, my resolve. And that scared her more than my actions. You've underestimated me, I said softly. And that will be your first mistake. Unseen by Aurelia, Caleb had followed me. He watched from the fog, hidden by the night. His face betrayed guilt and fear. He knew my plan was unfolding independently. He also knew I had surpassed him, emotionally and strategically. And for the first time, he understood. I was no longer the woman he could control. He was just collateral. Aurelia stepped closer, dangerously close. I could end you, she said, voice low, a hiss almost. Right here. Right now. I met her Chaze. I know, I said calmly. And you won't. Because you need me. And because if you do, everything you built collapses faster than you can imagine. She tilted her head. You're very confident, she said. Very arrogant. Very foolish. But I like that. I may even enjoy watching how far you can go before you break. I smiled faintly, lips tight. I don't break, I said. I adapt, I survive, I win. Suddenly, a flare of movement. A shadow from the fog. Aurelia froze. I tensed. And then I realized. This wasn't her. It was one of her operatives. He lunged toward me with a knife. I sidestepped. Fluid. Precise. He stumbled, cursed, and ran. Aurelia's eyes widened. Interesting, she said. Very interesting. And in that moment, I knew. The war had begun in earnest. I'll give you one chance, Aurelia said. One chance to step aside, to walk away, to stop playing in a game too dangerous for someone like you. I shook my head. No, I said firmly. Not now. Not ever. I make my own rules. Her eyes flared. You're going to regret that. I smiled, calm, determined, unafraid. I doubt it, I whispered. Because this time, I control the outcome. I turned and walked back into the fog, leaving her standing on the dock. Her voice called after me. You'll pay for this. And when you do, it will hurt more than you can imagine. I didn't look back. I didn't flinch. Because I had realized something vital. Fear was no longer in me. I had become the storm she hadn't accounted for. I woke to silence. The kind of silence that doesn't soothe, it presses. Heavy, almost suffocating. The estate felt different. Something had shifted overnight. The subtle sense that I wasn't alone. I checked every window, every door. Nothing. And yet, I felt it. A subtle movement. A presence. A shadow that shouldn't be there. Aurelia was making her first countermove. And she had learned from my strike. The first email arrived. A single line. You think you're untouchable, think again. No sender. No trace. But I knew immediately. Her network was watching. Every contact, every operative. I felt a pang of frustration. My plan was meticulous. Precise. Calculated. And yet she had already countered, forcing me to rethink my next moves. It wasn't the first time I'd underestimated an enemy, but it was the first time I realized the stakes had escalated beyond prediction. Caleb appeared mid-morning. Pale. Shaky. The man who had betrayed me, yet still clung to some sense of protection. She knows, he said, voice trembling. She knows everything. The leak you started, it triggered something bigger than you realize. I studied him. He looked fearful, not for himself, but for me. Then we adapt, I said, voice low, resolute. We escalate, too. We have no other choice. I reached out to someone from my past. A name I hadn't trusted in years. I needed information, access, leverage. I needed a way to hit Aurelia before she hit me again. It was risky. And it felt dangerous. But danger had become my companion. Within hours, I had a lead. An operative in her inner circle willing to betray her. For the right price. This was my first opportunity. And if I failed, it could be my last. I set the plan in motion. It was simple on paper. Leak false intel. Create confusion. Draw her operative into my control. But life isn't simple on paper. Aurelia anticipated some of my moves. A trap snapped shut. Security cameras I didn't know existed were activated. I caught glimpses of movement outside the estate. Someone had been watching. Waiting. And I realized, cold and hard, that she had learned faster than I had planned. The game had changed again. She was not just reacting. She was adapting. And now she was hunting me. Caleb broke down. He sat on the couch, head in his hands. I never thought she'd go this far, he whispered. She's relentless, she's everywhere. I looked at him. No words came. I realized he had become a liability. Not a pawn. Not a threat. But a reminder of everything I had lost. And everything I needed to overcome. I took a deep breath. We can't rely on him, I said quietly. We can't rely on anyone who hesitates. By evening, the first strike arrived. A package at the estate. No markings. No sender. Inside, a photo. Me. Sleeping. Unaware. I froze. The intimacy of the threat cut deeper than any weapon. She had access. She had eyes everywhere. And she had escalated beyond subtlety. I realized in that moment. I was no longer playing a game. I was surviving a war. I could have panicked. I could have retreated. I could have gone to Caleb for help. But he didn't. I adapted. Changed my routines. Created new safe points. Activated decoys. Every step forward now required precision. Every decision could mean success or death. I realized this was the nature of the game. And it was exhilarating, terrifying, and liberating all at once. By nightfall, I was exhausted. Physically. Mentally. Emotionally. Every heartbeat was a calculation. Every breath, a reminder. Every shadow, a possible threat. I thought of Caleb. I thought of the betrayal. I thought of Aurelia, waiting, poised to strike again. And I realized. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about beating her at her own game. As I sat in the quiet of the estate, my phone buzzed. A single message appeared on the screen. You can run, but you cannot hide. I'm closer than you think. I smiled faintly. Leaning back in the chair, I whispered. Then let's see how close you really are. The night had settled over the city like a velvet cloak. I sat in the study, reviewing every piece of information, every lead I had gathered. Maps, notes, photos, passwords, lines connecting secrets to operatives. Operatives to schemes. Schemes to Aurelia herself. Every move I had made, every risk I had taken, was leading to this moment. I didn't know if it would succeed. I didn't know if I'd survive. But I knew one thing. The truth had to be revealed. And once it was, nothing would be the same. I called Caleb to the estate. He came reluctantly, wary, still guilty. You've been lying to me, I said calmly. I know about the transfer. The meetings. The payments. The favors you've done for her behind my back. His face went pale. I was trying to protect you, he said, voice shaking. Every time I thought I could contain her, I failed. I shook my head. No, you didn't fail, you betrayed. Every move you made handed her power over me. Over us. He lowered his eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, he whispered. But she made me choose. And you chose wrong, I said. And now everyone will pay for it. Then it hit me, the final piece I had been missing. A secret account. All her transactions. All her manipulations. And among them, a file labeled, unmistakably, collateral estate. Aurelia had been planning to seize my luxury estate all along. The divorce, the threats, the manipulations, it was never about Caleb. It was about me. Everything I had thought I was fighting for, my freedom, my dignity, was intertwined with a secret I hadn't yet known. I was the ultimate prize. The one asset she could never replace. I called in the ally I had recruited earlier. A skilled operative willing to risk everything. Together, we began laying the trap. Small leaks of information to Aurelia's inner circle. Hints of betrayal, clues that made her second-guess her most trusted operatives. Subtle, invisible nudges designed to destabilize. The empire she had built on fear and control began to fracture. And for the first time, I had leverage. Not just survival. Not just reaction. But control. Within hours, the first crack appeared. A senior operative questioned her orders. Another delayed an assignment. Aurelia's network, so rigid and precise, began to wobble under the weight of her own hubris. I watched it unfold remotely. Every misstep was calculated. Every hesitation magnified. And I realized, the predator had underestimated me. I had become the storm she never saw coming. Caleb, for all his guilt, had proven to be useful. He admitted to every secret transaction. Every lie. Every subtle manipulation. I listened quietly. Recording, analyzing, cataloging. By the end, I knew exactly how she operated. How she controlled. And most importantly, how she could be dismantled. I held the secret in my hands. Aurelia's vulnerability. Exposed. Visible only to me. And with it, the power shifted. I could negotiate. I could retaliate. I could dismantle her empire from the inside. Everything she thought she owned, me, Caleb, the estate, was now mine to command. I called Caleb, voice steady but cold. You need to understand one thing, I said. You betrayed me. But I will use every piece of what you've done to protect what's mine. He nodded, silent. No words. He knew the gravity. And in that moment, I realized. The betrayal had fueled me. The deception had sharpened me. The risk had transformed me. I was no longer the victim. I was the force. Using the secret I had uncovered, I initiated the first strike. An anonymous leak. A financial exposure. A subtle disruption to Aurelia's carefully curated empire. By dawn, the effects would be visible. By sunrise, confusion would reign. And I would watch from the shadows, unseen, untouchable, unstoppable. A single message arrived on my secure line. I know what you did. I see you now. Aurelia. I smiled faintly, calm, resolute. Good, I whispered. because now the game begins in earnest. The city was still cloaked in the gray of early morning, streets slick with overnight rain. Inside my estate, I watched the first tremors of my plan unfold. Aurelia's empire, meticulously built on fear and manipulation, was beginning to crack. Emails misrouted. Operatives confused. Decisions delayed. All because of one carefully placed leak. And I knew it. She felt the tremor. She hated it. I monitored her response. From afar. Unsayan. Untouchable. Her phone rang incessantly. Commands barked. Operatives questioned orders. She had never experienced resistance. Never someone who wasn't afraid. And it was unraveling her. Her empire strong, ruthless, untouchable was bending under my hand. Caleb sat quietly, watching with a mixture of awe and fear. I can't believe it, he muttered. She's losing control. Because of you. I didn't respond immediately. I let him feel it. Let him understand the power he had squandered. He had betrayed me, yes. But now he was witnessing the truth. I had turned every betrayal into leverage. She came to the estate herself, unannounced. Her eyes blazing, her presence a storm. You think you've won? She hissed. You've made mistakes, little pawn. Dangerous mistakes. And now. You'll pay. He didn't flinch. I've already paid, I said calmly. But I've also already won. Her jaw tightened. She realized that the playing field had shifted. For the first time, she was reacting. Not controlling. Not manipulating. Reacting. I watched her fury, her disbelief, her panic. And for the first time in months, I felt the intoxicating mix of justice and empowerment. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about righting the imbalance. About reclaiming what was mine. About showing her that I was not a victim. The plan continued to unfold with precision. Key assets she relied on were subtly compromised. Communications she trusted were exposed. Operatives began turning against her not because I asked. Every move I made struck at her foundation. Every action exposed her overconfidence. Every moment widened the gap between her and control. He approached me, voice low. She's never been challenged like this before, he whispered. She's scared. I nodded. Yes. And she should be. Because fear is her only weapon and I've taken it from her. For the first time, Caleb realized he was no longer the center of the game. He was collateral. And he would have to watch as I dismantled what he had helped create. She cornered me in the study. The air thick with tension. You've crossed a line. She said, voice low, deadly. Do you understand what you've done? You've made me vulnerable. I smiled faintly, calm, collected. Yes. And I understand exactly how to use it. She realized, finally, that control was slipping. Her usual dominance, calculated, precise, terrifying, was failing. And she hated that I had done it without fear. By nightfall, the first results were clear. Aurelia's network was in disarray. Several key operatives had withdrawn, questioning loyalty. Her authority was challenged from within, her empire destabilized. I had turned the tide. Not through brute force. Not through intimidation. But through strategy, cunning, and unshakable resolve. And it felt exhilarating. Aurelia faced me one last time that night. Her eyes flared with fury, lips tight. You think this is over? She whispered. I shook my head. No, I said. But I know who controls the next move. For the first time, she hesitated. Her confidence cracked. Her aura of untouchable power faltered. And I realized, quietly, to myself. This was the turning point. The moment when the predator became prey. A single message appeared on my phone. Anonymous but unmistakable. You've won the first round. But the war is far from over. I smiled, unshaken, whispering to the night. Let her come. I've been waiting for this. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, soft and warm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous night. I sat at the desk in my study, reviewing the aftermath of my first strike against Aurelia. Her empire was destabilized. Her operatives were questioning her authority. Her carefully cultivated fear was crumbling. And I finally allowed myself a moment to breathe. Not relief, never relief, but clarity. I realized something. This journey had not just been about retaliation. It had been about discovering who I truly was. Caleb appeared, hesitant, watching me with a mixture of awe and remorse. I didn't realize how much you could do, he whispered. How much you had in you. I looked at him, steady, eyes sharp. You didn't have to understand, I said. You just needed to see it. Betrayal had been my catalyst. Humiliation had been my fire. And in the end, every moment of manipulation, deceit, and loss had sharpened me. I walked through the rooms of my estate, letting my fingers brush over walls, furniture, spaces I had fought to protect. Power is not taken lightly. Power is not given. It is earned through strategy, courage, and unyielding resolve. Aurelia had thought she could control me. She had thought her intimidation and fear would dictate the outcome. But she had underestimated one thing. My ability to adapt. Though victory had begun, the war was far from over. I reviewed every detail, every operative, every vulnerability. Every piece of information was now a weapon. I was no longer reacting. I was controlling the narrative. I was setting the stage for the final confrontation. Every step I took now would be precise, deliberate, and irreversible. I allowed myself a rare, quiet moment. Sitting in the study, alone, I let the events of the past weeks wash over me. The betrayal of Caleb. The intimidation of Aurelia. The strategies, the counter-strikes, the victories, the threats. Every heartbeat, every decision, had brought me here. And I realized the most important truth. I was stronger than I had ever imagined. I drafted the final sequence of moves. Operatives who were loyal to her would be flipped. Key weaknesses in her network would be exposed to the right people at the right time. Aurelia herself would face undeniable consequences for every act of manipulation and betrayal. The game was nearly over. And this time, there would be no second chances. Caleb, now aware of his own failures, offered support, not control, not interference. I want to help, he said quietly. I can see now that I was wrong. I see now that you are unstoppable. I nodded, a faint smile playing on my lips. Yes, I said softly. Unstoppable, unyielding, and unafraid. And in that moment, I understood something essential. This was not about revenge alone. It was about reclaiming power, identity, and dignity. The night approached, heavy with anticipation. I reviewed every piece of information, every strategy, every calculated risk. Aurelia would come. And she would try to reclaim control. But now, I was ready. Every move she could make had already been anticipated. Every threat she could wield was already countered. This was the culmination of everything, the final showdown. Where all secrets, strategies, and emotions would collide. I paused by the window, looking over the city lights. I thought about the journey, the betrayal, the lies, the threats, and the fear. I thought about the victories I had carved with my own hands. And I realized, the woman I had become was no longer afraid of anyone. I was ready for the storm. My phone buzzed, a single message flashing on the screen. You've gone too far. I'm coming for you tonight. I smiled faintly, a spark of anticipation in my eyes. Then let's finish this. Night had fallen completely over the city, darkness thick like a curtain. I stood in my study, every light dimmed, every movement calculated. The final confrontation was inevitable. Aurelia would arrive. She would try to intimidate, manipulate, and reclaim control. But this time, I was ready. I checked my secure line, my operative contacts, my plans. Every piece of the puzzle was in place. Every potential threat neutralized. The doorbell rang. Caleb and I exchanged a glance. No words were necessary. I opened the door. Aurelia stood there, all poise and elegance, but the faintest tremor betrayed her. She had expected fear. She had expected compliance. She got neither. You've gone far, she said. Voice smooth but dangerous. Too far. I've gone exactly where I needed to, I replied, calm, unwavering. This ends tonight. I stepped aside and motioned to my laptop, already connected to a secure network. All her secrets, financial records, manipulations, her network of spies displayed clearly. Operatives who had once followed her unquestioningly were now seeing her duplicity exposed. She gasped. Her carefully built empire crumbled under the weight of her own ambition. The fear she had wielded as power was gone. You think this is enough? She hissed. I think it's everything, I said. And it was. She realized then. Her power had never been absolute. Every move she had made was anticipated. Every threat countered. Every manipulation revealed. For the first time, Aurelia faced the consequences of her actions. Her threats meaningless. Her empire fractured. Her control gone. I had won not with violence, but with strategy, courage, and unshakable resolve. Caleb stepped forward. I see now, he said. Voice low. You didn't just survive. You led. You overcame everything. I nodded, soft but firm. Yes. And now? We move forward without fear, without deception. He had learned the cost of betrayal. I had learned the strength and self-determination. I walked through my estate, every room echoing memories of betrayal, strategy, and triumph. Betrayal had fueled me. Humiliation had sharpened me. Fear had transformed me. I realized the truth. Life does not give power to the passive. It gives it to the courageous, the resilient, the unafraid. And I had become exactly that. To anyone watching, anyone who has been manipulated, betrayed, or underestimated. You are stronger than you think. You can reclaim your power. You can turn betrayal into strategy, fear into determination, and manipulation into insight. Life will test you. Life will challenge you. But you decide how to respond. I chose to rise. And so can you. I stepped outside, the night air crisp, lights of the city below flickering like stars. I was no longer afraid. I was no longer controlled. I was free. Aurelia's empire would survive but without her dominance. Caleb would learn from his mistakes. And I would carry forward, stronger, wiser, unshakable. The storm had passed. And I stood unbroken. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you faced betrayal and come out stronger? Tell me in the comments your story matters. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this because courage, strategy, and survival are lessons we all can learn from. The journey ends here. But the story lives on.